This week on JTV, we're digging in the dirt to create this beautiful coleus hanging basket using Soil Moist from JRM Chemical. Before we get started with today's project, let's talk a little bit about Soil Moist. It's an incredible product. Its granular form looks like this, and as water is attributed to it, it turns into this. Now, JRM Chemicals are the makers of Soil Moist. They also make these great deco beads that we've used in a JTV webisode. Just about anything can be created from the Soil Moist product. They've got these great little frogs, and let me show you what those look like. They've got all sorts of different shapes, but as they go in water, they get bigger. There's dinosaurs in here and alligators. But the original concept started from Soil Moist. Now there's other great products that they have as well. These Soil Moist mats that allow you to place them under your plants so they'll water your plants when you're on vacation, or ones that go inside hanging baskets. That's the same concept that we're going to use today. There's all sorts of different products, including plant stakes and even some great ones for Christmas trees. This allows you to have to worry less about living plants and making sure that they have moisture. So today, what we're going to do is plant this wonderful planter for outside. This hangs on the wall, and we're going to line this with moss and then plant it with some of these beautiful coleus. Now, you may have seen my webisode from Campbell's Nursery in Lincoln, Nebraska with our garden expert, Chris Campbell. One of the things I fell in love with there were the coleus. And I went out to my local independent garden center and I found those coleus as well. Sedona, the one that's almost a peanut butter color. Or look at this one called fishnet stockings. Look at how incredible that coleus looks. What about this one? Dappled apple. It's perfect for our JTV colors. Or this one, twist and twirl. Now these are both twist and twirl, so look at how different the coleus can look. The interesting thing about coleus is they like shade. They can stand a little bit of morning sun, and they don't want to be bone dry. So that's why we're going to use the Soil Moist for today's project. So our first step is to line the basket with moss. I'm using this gorgeous moss from Verdissimo. It's going to have great color all summer long. We're just using those pieces and filling in the inside of our basket. So we're just layering those pieces and putting them together. It's going to hold the soil in place. Got the green on the outside, so I'm using the brown towards the interior of the basket, so that when we're looking up from the bottom, we're going to see all that beautiful moss. Now we've created a cavity on the inside of our planter box where our soil will go. And that's the next part. I've got good potting soil here, and I'm going to use the Soil Moist. On the back of every bag is a complete instruction list of how much Soil Moist you need per pot size. In this case, we've got the equivalent of about an 8 to 10 inch planter. So we want to use between 1 teaspoon and 1.5 teaspoons. That's the Soil Moist in its granular form. We've already hydrated some of it. This was a tip that the salesman told me at Campbell's. To add it hydrated to your soil so that it doesn't expand once it gets wet and unearth some of your plants. That's really good advice. So we'll take the Soil Moist and add it to the soil itself. Mixing it in thoroughly. Now it's really amazing how much 1.5 teaspoons of the granular will create. So we just want to make sure we have a good amount inside here. We want to make sure that it's mixed in thoroughly. Let me show you exactly how this works. This is a close-up of how the roots actually can penetrate and go right through the Soil Moist, helping keep the plant hydrated. Because Soil Moist is completely safe and non-toxic, we can use it on any type of flower, plant, or vegetable. So our next step is to add the soil. Now, because we're also adding our plants, we want to make sure that we don't fill this completely up with soil, or we're going to have way too much. We can add more as we need it. Then we can start with our coleus. This fishnet stockings is beautiful. Now, when I was talking to our garden expert, Chris Campbell, she told me that you don't want to disturb the roots too much. And I love this. Look at how healthy those roots are on the outside there. Nice, white, beautiful roots. We know that that's a good, healthy plant. I'm going to use that as the centerpiece. I'm going to want it to sit up just a little bit higher, so I'm going to add a little bit more soil. The great part about planting is the trial and error that goes on. I love getting my hands down in the dirt. We'll use the twist and twirl off to the other side. Another twist and twirl back here. Now it's a good idea, because I have this large metal rack in back, makes it a little bit difficult for me to get in there. So right now, I'm going to go in and add some soil in between and surround that back row. The Sedona. It's going to look so great in front of this one on this side. Look at those colors together. And this little guy is called Merlin's Magic. Look at how different those leaves are. This one's called Religious Radish. And finally, the Dapple Apple. And that one goes right there. Look at how that chartreuse green pumps up all those colors of plants together. Now, you have different opportunities when you're planting. That's another great thing that Chris told me, was that we can use these plants, and if we put more in there, it's going to look great right now. Or we might use a couple less and let them get bigger throughout the summer. The coleus are going to grow nice and large, so that's a very functional thing for us to think about. This is probably going to be about this big by the end of the summer. It's going to be glorious and fabulous. There are great tags that come in all of these that tell you information about the flowers themselves. I save them many times because I want to know that Dapple Apple is that coleus, so I remember next year. A great tip for you is to just create a scrapbook or get a notebook that has pockets in it, and you can throw them in there and remember what you did last year, so you've got a reference point. Also, the care and handling's on here too. So now, we just go back in between and add soil in between those plants. Now, with our edges of our moss, we can kind of roll that back so we're not seeing that big rough edge. It looks nice and natural. As our summer progresses then, our plants are going to grow beautifully. And we're going to be ensured that they're not going to need water as frequently, because on those really hot days, Soil Moist is going to take care of the product for us and make sure that these plants have the water that they need. As the soil dries out, the Soil Moist turns back into a granular form. When we add water, it swells up again and waits to release it for the plants when they actually need it. It's a great way in our busy lives to ensure that the plants are taken care of as well. Our final step would be to take this and water it in thoroughly. We want to make sure that we use a hose and we soak all of the soil, all of the plants, and the moss completely. So, I'm off to do that right now. And until next week, you keep having fun with flowers.